To determine who would be the most suitable guide dog, the woman called all the dogs over. They all rushed over, but one puppy didn't react. It froze for a few seconds before darting over. Then it raised its head, plopped down on the ground, and stared blankly at its owner, as if asking, "Why did you call me over?" Yet this seemingly innocent little dog was chosen as the most suitable guide dog because it was calm and composed, the very qualities a guide dog must possess. Thus, Little Q left his first owner's home and was sent to a guide dog training center. However, the trainer didn't rush Little Q into training. Instead, he found a foster home. Guide dogs need to feel loved as children in order to trust humans in their future work. Little Q enjoyed a happy childhood there. He had his own little yard where he slept after eating and was completely at ease. A year passed quickly. Although Little Q's mind was still immature, he felt a deep sense of love in his adoptive parents' home. That night, snowflakes suddenly fell from the sky. The day of departure had finally arrived. The next day, they walked for a long time along the cherry blossoms. Little Q's adoptive parents reluctantly told him to come home often when the cherry blossoms bloomed. Finally, Little Q was loaded into a car. Parting is always sad. Seeing Little Q bewildered in the car, his adoptive parents were tempted to watch him leave. But as the car drove further and further away, they couldn't help but chase after him. They stopped at an intersection and waved goodbye, knowing Little Q had more important things to do. The child soon experienced his second farewell. He was sent to a guide dog training center. But on his first day, he felt completely out of place. Accustomed to the small, delicious treats at home, he couldn't handle the food dog here. He kicked the bowl out in disgust, but no one was watching him. Little Q had been hungry all night, and the next day during training, he was so hungry he ate anything he could find. The trainers were a little amused when they saw this scene. They all felt that he could not resist the temptation of food. Moreover, in the subsequent obedience training, the other dogs all obeyed their orders, but Little Q just sat there lazily and refused to move. Fortunately, the trainer didn't give up on him. He began encouraging him, touching the birthmark on Little Q's belly and declaring it the most unique dog he'd ever seen. As soon as he finished his words, Little Q began to cooperate under the trainer's gentle guidance. After a few days of training, the trainer assumed Little Q was just an ordinary dog, until one day when he had something urgent to do and told Little Q to stay put before leaving. Little Q lay there waiting for so long that the trainer had forgotten about it. It was only when he stumbled upon Little Q while training other dogs that he stared at him in disbelief. Little Q had the natural qualities necessary for a guide dog. He could overcome his instincts and suppress his desires, something even humans struggle to achieve. Even more surprising was Little Q's exceptional memory. During road training, he effortlessly memorized everything from stairs to corners. The trainer's constant mention of obstacles even made the child sleepy, and he was no problem navigating complex areas. The trainer's affection for him grew. Soon, the training center began preparing for guide dog trials. The sudden blast of the signal gun sent the dogs into a panic. Those that immediately ran away were overly sensitive to the sound, too excited. Only Xiaoquei remained calm. He was the first to qualify as a guide dog. Perhaps it was fate that during training, they saw a blind trainer quickly dragging Xiaoquei after him, wanting him to try walking with a guide dog. But the man was stubborn, refusing to believe a dog could lead the way. Only after the trainer assured him that a 30-minute walk would mean the dog would arrive in 10 minutes, the man carefully took the lead and prepared to try it out. Initially, their cooperation was shaky. The man, fearing the dog wouldn't acknowledge him, walked with a stiff body, insisting on repeatedly checking around corners. Once they reached a familiar section of the road, Xiaoquei's guidance led him, but he became cocky again, and a passing truck gave him a fright, breaking into a cold sweat. Despite the many twists and turns along the way, they reached the destination within 10 minutes. The man with a newfound appreciation for guide dogs decided to keep Xiaoquei by his side. But the affectionate guide dog also needed to complete tacit understanding training, which involved both practical application and theoretical study. This put a strain on the two, both prone to dozing. The man and the dog. Furthermore, the man was quite chauvinistic. At the roadblock, even though Xiaoquei had stopped, she insisted on bumping into him, then even cornered him. Even though he knew it was downhill, the man ignored instructions and ended up falling flat on his face. After finally completing a roadblock, the trainer reminded him to praise the dog, but he just squatted. When I was abroad, I saw how long we would go to worship tomorrow. As expected at the end of the training day, the other blind people received their diplomas, leaving the two of them sitting alone in a corner. Little K, seemingly sensing his master's loss, wagged his tail and approached to comfort the man, touching him. A smile finally cracked his face, tense since he went blind. From then on, he gradually began to trust Little K. Not only did he train diligently during the day, he even snuck out for extra practice at night, only to be discovered by the staff. When I come out, I hope I can come here quietly. Soon after, they finally passed the exam. The night before leaving, the man wanted to celebrate with a beer, but unable to see the mistake, he grabbed several bottles of drinks. Just as he was about to put in his last coin, Little K quickly warned him and sneezed 3 times. Half convinced, the man went to the third vending machine. Sure enough, it was beer. From then on, the man and the dog developed a rapport. And so, the man graduated successfully and returned home. The children loved Little Q, but his wife didn't like dogs, so they had no choice but to set up a makeshift dog outside. But on his first day, the man's old habits resurfaced. Stubborn, he ignored Little Q's instructions, causing traffic to be blocked along the way. However, the traffic was polite and no one honked. 4 companies ordered 10 belts. Back at work, the man began bragging about his guide dog. A blind colleague, unconvinced, secretly took Little Q out. The man discovered him and yelled, prompting Little Q to run back. The trainer, aware of the man's disruptive behavior, sternly warned him that such behavior would not only kill him, but also Little Q. Before leaving, he specifically warned him that if he continued to act this way, Little Q's use would be revoked. The man realized his mistake, and after the trainer left, he lowered his guard and apologized to Little Q. That evening, a sudden downpour began. A boy came to the monster box to hold an umbrella for Little Q, believing Little Q was playing with him. The man overheard the tug-of-war between the dog and the man, angrily opening the window and scolding his son. On realizing his son had come to hold an umbrella for little Kay, the man realized he had misunderstood, but to save his father's face, he still gave him a stern lecture. In a word, this nation must be given to that one. The boy, feeling wronged, scolded little Kay before leaving. Having grown up in a loving environment, little Kay, feeling wronged, braved the pouring rain and ran away from home, wandering along her usual path. It wasn't until a few days later that the man received word that she had been found in the next village. He angrily told the child not to come back and then left without looking back. He was terribly worried, fearing the child would not catch up. Only when he was sure the child had caught up, the man felt relieved and embraced her. Before he knew it, she had become inseparable from little Q. After returning home, the man added the monster as a friend and provided little Q with shelter. They lived together for 2 years. They thought their lives would remain peaceful, until one day, when the man suddenly felt unwell and went to the bathroom. Although he didn't ask little Q to come with him, he immediately noticed something was wrong from the corner. Sure enough, when he entered, he saw his owner vomiting into the toilet. Little Q frantically circled around him. The man fell ill and was taken to the hospital, his arm laden with tubes. Little Q, unaware of his master's illness, could only stay by his side day and night. With no one to care for him, little Q's trainer came to the hospital and wanted to take him away. His son couldn't bear it. The seriously ill father, grappling with separation, quietly took little Q away while she slept. Little Q, unaware of this, saw a hand slowly reach out from behind and gently wave, as if bidding farewell to little Q, who hadn't yet left. As if sensing something, she turned and stood there for a long, long time. For the next 3 years, the man never came to pick her up. Little Q didn't find a new owner and resumed her work at the demonstration garden, until one day she suddenly heard a familiar voice, a knock on the ground. The child excitedly rushed out. It was indeed her longed-for master. She waggled her tail and scurried off into the South China Sea, where man and dog enjoyed a long-awaited reunion. But the man wasn't there to pick her up. They arrived at the training ground and walked the 30 meters just as they had in training before asking Xiao Kuai to stop. The man said this was enough. This was the last part of the journey little Kay would walk with him. It turned out he knew he was dying. He had come that day to say goodbye to little Kay. Not long after, the man passed away. Little Kay attended the memorial service. Looking at the body, he couldn't understand why his master lay there, why white flowers were placed around him, and why the person who had just been talking about his master suddenly burst into silent tears. On the way back to the training center, as they passed a staircase, little Kay paused again to remind the trainer to be careful. Little Kay was truly an excellent guide dog, remaining so gentle and quiet throughout his life. 7 years passed in a flash. 11-year-old little Kay retired from the guide dog center and was sent back to his adoptive parents' home. He kept sniffing the sense of home. Everything was still so familiar. But he had grown old. Stairs that he had once easily jumped down now required his adoptive father to carry him down. He had traveled all his life, meeting only kind people, and finally, he could finally live out his days in the place where he grew up. Little Kay was undoubtedly lucky, living happily here for another year. Until one day, while climbing a flight of stairs, he lost his balance and fell heavily. He had spent his life reminding people to be careful with stairs, but now he had collapsed on one. Little Kay was too old now, too old to even stand. This fall was fatal for her age. The doctors were helpless and could only try to see how long little Kay could hold out. That evening, her adoptive parents suddenly heard her rapid breathing. They rushed to her side, gently stroked her fur, and comforted her by saying she had worked hard. She replied, "Home. They're gone. Don't worry, your godfather is crying. I am crying to death. Exist." Their smiling faces, watching little Kay bid her final farewell. After all, 12 years and 25 days, little Kay finally completed her ordinary yet remarkable life. Guide dogs aren't just unlucky people. We're all lucky to meet them. There are fewer than 200 guide dogs in my country, but there are 17 million visually impaired people. Each guide dog is unique, spending their entire lives restraining their instincts and sacrificing their freedom to silently serve humanity. To date, there has not been a single reported incident of a guide dog injuring anyone, yet many people still discriminate against them. I hope this touching story will inspire us all to be kind to them.